with Jon Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, everybody? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome to the Fantasy Slam NBA DFS Playbook Show. We got a 12-game main slate that we're breaking down here today, James. It is a wild day because we have no NBA games on Tuesday due to voting day around the country. And yet, we have a number of players that listed as questionable, a few of these players from back-to-backs, some big-name players as well, like Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Draymond Green. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's actually been upgraded to probable since then. CJ McCollum we know is out. Jamal Murray that we know is out. Just like a long list. Derek White is out. Kristaps Porzingis is questionable. A long list of players that whether they're in or out will impact the direction of the way this slate goes, the value that ends up opening up here. Some perceived matchups may then change. A whole lot to get to in the next hour or so here. And with, what do we have, 4 games starting at 7 p.m. We will definitely be getting some news ahead of roster block. So appreciate everybody tuning in here. My friend, how are we doing today?
Doing well. Yeah, 4 at 7 total before 7:30. So we should have a lot of news nice and early. Shout out to you, Faisal, for always coming through. And yes, before the hello, Faisal even says so many injuries. That was the first thing on his mind. Right. We don't no hello, just injuries.
So many injuries.
Can't blame you there, Faisal. I agree. There's a plethora of injuries to a lot of stars that we could talk about this slate in full, and then Luka could be ruled out, and SGA could be ruled out, and then nothing we said matters because everything we mentioned is no longer. So we're going to do our best to break it down regardless of the news. We'll mention outcomes, whether players are in, whether they're out, what to do if they're in, what to do if they're out. So we'll have that covered, and we'll react live when news breaks, if and when news breaks, because I assume there will be news. There's typically been news during the show, but it's definitely an interesting slate. The first potential to get popped here, John, the first Greg Popovich Spurs back-to-back, despite the team age. Popovich is one to bob when we think he's going to weave, and he's going to weave when we think he's going to bob, and we have no idea what goes on in his mind other than he thinks that what was the comment today for Wembanyama? It was they were like, what do you think makes him so unique? He's like, I don't know, he's unique. Like, what do you want me to say? How do you want me to say it? Like, right. So a lot going on today with the 12 games. I'm looking forward to breaking it all down.
Yeah, 100% here. Let's just get into it because, again, we have 12 games to talk about, a lot of news still to come, some news we've already had. So certainly different ways we can go ahead and approach this. Guys, if you're coming into the stream here and you have any questions, feel free to throw them down. Again, more than happy to answer those. We'll interact with you. If you have prop questions you want, lineup questions you got, be sure to get involved here. And if you could, as you see down in the scroll below, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, get notified whenever we go live throughout the week here. James and I do our NBA DFS preview show in the morning. We come back here live at 5 o'clock Eastern time. So plenty of NBA DFS content, plenty of fantasy football content on the channel. So help support us here. If you could throw a like down on the show today, certainly would be appreciated. James, let's jump into the slate here. Again, 12 games. Talking about top point spreads here today. Games that we should be maybe looking to target. A couple of games up over 230 here today. Oklahoma City and Atlanta, 241 with just a 1.5 point spread. No doubt about it. A lot of people are going to be looking to go there. San Antonio versus Indiana, 238.5. Wizards, 76ers, 229.5. But that's an 11.5 point spread. Milwaukee, Brooklyn sitting at a 233.5 and a 5.5 point spread. What other games are you possibly looking at here today?
That's it for games that I'm really interested in. It is interesting to see Sacramento, Houston down to 218, 217.5 area because those are two pretty good offenses. But when you remove De'Aaron Fox from the equation, obviously things turn out to be a low total. Also, something to note, Boston, I saw this tweet earlier. Boston top 5 offense, Minnesota top 5 defense. So something will give in that game, especially if there's no Zinger and no Derek White. So a lot of fun basketball to be had tonight.
Yeah, some teams that are in great pace spots here: 76ers, the Knicks, the Rockets, the Timberwolves, and the Bulls, all in pace up spots for them. Pace down spots, obviously, the teams that they're facing: Washington, the Clippers, the Celtics, the Kings, and the Jazz. We're all, going to be playing at a little bit of a slower pace than we're used to them seeing, while the other teams are going to be playing at a pace up spot here. I actually think the Wizards and the 76ers are the complete opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of pace. If you go look at our matchup report tool there, you have Washington coming in first overall in pace of play. 76ers are 25th. So pretty dramatic difference there when it comes to the 76ers, because what do we talk about with Nick Nurse, right? He plays his starters. This has an 11.5 point spread. Some people were maybe worried a bit about the possible blowout. We had that chat in our Discord earlier today as well. And it's like, all right, well, if Philly goes up 20, are those guys going to be on the floor? And it's like, well, they've left Maxey out there 35 minutes. And again, they won by 18. Like we've seen Embiid play 30 plus minutes still. So that's just sort of the Nick Nurse era moving itself into Philly. It doesn't really matter what the point spreads are. In the game totals, the starters play 3.5 quarters, and then they come out if it's a blowout.
Yeah, I feel a little more secure about Maxey's minutes than versus like Embiid's if we're just comparing the two. But at the same time, feel better about Embiid's production on a night-to-night basis, especially when the opposing centers are Daniel Gafford, Kyle Kuzma, Danilo Gallinari, and Mike Muscala guarding against Joel Embiid. So like that's going to be a very interesting spot to watch. Not your typical team fade when a 12-point spread or so is in play here, but it's going to be really interesting to see how things shake out in that Philly Washington game for sure.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about position by position breakdown here. And again, those of you tuning in, certainly appreciate you. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to throw them in the chat. We will talk strategy, theory, best plays, favorite plays. You got questions. If you have FanDuel questions, Yahoo DFS questions, we play over there as well. Feel free to throw them in the chat. Happy to answer those for you. Point guard position again. Luka Doncic pops up here today, listed as questionable. Second day of a back-to-back on the road now in Orlando. $12,000. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander went from out to upgraded to questionable. Our expectation based off last year is that SGA will play now in this game here at $10,400. You have Curry coming off the back-to-back on the road. Halliburton at 94. Trae Young 93. Lillard 92. Then, of course, Kyrie also popping in there at 9K. Also questionable there for Dallas. When I did the playbook today, I kind of keyed in on a few of these plays here. SGA, Halliburton, Trae Young, I consider to be my top 3 priced guards on tonight's slate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Dallas news is very just open-ended. Like, if there's no Kyrie, Luka Doncic obviously vaults himself into elite category with, I would say, where Jokic and Embiid sit. And you can say the same thing kind of about Kyrie, who's $3,000 cheaper. The only thing is Orlando's second best defensive ratings thus far in the NBA. So, you're contending with that, which is, weird, but Orlando is a slow paced team and they have stepped it up on the defensive end. SGA, I told you, like, anyone in that game is in play for me. And the fact that game's been bet up to a 242, 241 total, depending on what sportsbook you're looking at, speaks volumes on how good of an environment it is. So obviously if SGA plays, participated in shoot around this morning, he's firmly in play. The field is getting to Halliburton. It's really hard not to like him. You're going up against a team in San Antonio who is 9th in pace. Although they have Victor Wembanyama, are 26th in defensive rating. So anytime you see top 10 in pace, bottom 5 defense, that's a team you want to target. Halliburton, obviously 27-point quarters isn't going to be in the cards religiously, but he's been great. Nice floor, great ceiling. And the price is still he should be 10K moving forward. So obviously you can get the Halliburton. I love Trae Young, truthfully, and I keep saying it, and I'm going to keep saying it over and over and over again. Like, Dejounte Murray, once again, is going to be 5x the ownership Trae Young is, and I understand it because of price. I understand the savings. But like Trae Young, we've seen a ceiling game from Dejounte. Trae Young has averaged nearly 30 points a game for an entire season, and he averages a double-double with almost 30 points a game for an entire season. Like, he has not really played well. He's shooting 34% from the floor, 28% from three for a guy that we know can fill it up. Like, I'm going to keep playing Trae at negative ownership. And then like Dame and Curry are basically like your tournament darts at low ownership that I'm sure, we'll have random.
We know they can certainly break the slate if they want it, if they think that it's there's some they get going. We saw Dame do it on opening night, right? Opening night of the season, he goes for drops 57. So $9,200, lowest he's been all season. Same thing with Kyrie. If Luka gets out, Kyrie gets in at $9K. You think he's the highest roster point guard?
Haliburton probably still, I would say, still trumps him. But it's probably a lot closer than it is right now, like Haliburton versus the field.
Sure. Myron pointing out here, getting to Franz. We'll talk about Franz in a second here. We're big Franz Wagner fans, but wild shot attempts for him. Markelle Fultz out, Wendell Carter Jr. out. Two guys there, probably maybe slight impacts to Franz taking more shots there. But we do like Orlando. We'll talk about some of those guys here in a moment. Mid-tier point guards, again, we got down and you and I had this debate on the show. You can find us on Twitter talking about that, as well as we do get the Orlando Magic starting lineup here for tonight. Goga back in starting at center, and Black starting at guard for full tier. The rest of the same: Suggs, Wagner, and Banchero. So nothing changing from their starting lineup the other night. But moving back to this mid-tier range here, Tyrese Maxey at $8,300. Certainly a guy that you and I were having that debate last night when it came to Tyler Hero. Here we're having the multi-positional eligibility. As I dug through the playbook, a guy that kept on popping up a little bit more and more for me is Fred VanVleet, $7,700. 3 of the last 4 games here, 45 or more fantasy points for him. If you go look at our NBA DFS consistency tool, which again, I suggest all of you go out there if you're a Fantasy Center subscriber already. Go check out the consistency tool. It's linked in the playbook here today. Over on DraftKings, again, he's given us a 6x return and 2 7x return on today's price tag over those 4 games here. He's rung it back against Sacramento, where he just had the 53 fantasy points, the double-doubles in 3 of those 4 games here. Obviously, tough spot against Golden State, but we already think Sacramento, they don't play much defense here. So, for me, Maxey and FVV here in the mid-tier is where I'm looking at.
Yeah, as long as if you're not including Dejounte here at point guard, then
I think if we talk Trae, Dejounte works as a shooting guard.
Okay, I agree. And like Tyrese Maxey, obviously, he's going to play big minutes regardless of outcome. Was more aggressive in the second half of that Phoenix game. Love to see the peripheral stats: 15 blocks or 15 rebounds and assists combined last game is amazing. We know the points are going to be there, and I do like VanVleet for tournaments. The only downside to this game, and obviously it wasn't a downside last time out, is the point total, the lowest total on the board, 217. And I think you can get to Houston, guys. I'm not saying you can't. I think the Kings side of things is really hard to really navigate because they're priced appropriately or too expensive almost across the board. Even with De'Aaron Fox out, there's no reprieve for anybody, like no value at all. So
yeah, I mean, you want to get risky. We talked Chris Duarte a little bit, you and I, this morning. He was in the closing lineup of that game for the Kings. You mentioned Horder got into foul trouble, and then, as Horder has done all season, sucked. So Duarte ended up playing a little bit over him. More injury news breaking its way through here. Jaden Ivey officially ruled out. We already know Alec Burks was considered doubtful. We'll see if Detroit drops any more hammers on us here. But since we are talking point guard, Marcus Sasser, someone we have to now discuss here. On FanDuel, he's $4,900. That's a bit more expensive than I think I want to pay for him. But on DraftKings here, $4,400. Guy that's gone for 30 plus now in 3 straight games. He's in the playbook already. and he's in the player pool grid as well. So nothing needs to be changed there. I was kind of leaning in on him initially, expecting that news to come through here, but some more value, more sort of like solidifying itself on this slate, and we'll have some rostership updates for everybody probably as we get a little bit closer to lineup lock with all this news coming out here. So pivoting back to this mid-tier, with you on the King side, I still like Van Vliet here. Where are you on Drew Holiday, D'Angelo Russell? Drew Holiday without Derek White against Brooklyn played 40 minutes in that game, 18, 9, and 10. Now maybe no zinger tonight. Do you think Drew Holiday at 7K is a bit underpriced for what we could be seeing out of him tonight against Minnesota?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, the only thing we worry about is Minnesota is the number 1 ranked defensive team in basketball, but like, it's what gives. Is it the number 1 offensive team in basketball, or is it the number 1 defensive team in basketball? Because that's what we have. So I do think the price is definitely very cheap. If Zinger sits, we were 1 rebound away from a triple-double from Holiday last game.
Right.
And Zinger's starting at center, and that would push Luke Cornett into more minutes, and that would push Horford to starting center.
Horford at 5. My expectations would be if Porzingis sits out, Horford starts at the 5, and then they make a decision if they go like O'Shea Brissett or something like that at power forward, or they put Sam Hauser in the lineup to play one of the wings, and they keep Tatum at the power forward position. I would assume those would be one of the 2 guys that find themselves moving into the starting lineup. I don't think they want to put Peyton Pritchard in the starting lineup because then they don't have a backup guard to put on the floor. So, one of those 2 wings I think finds their way. But I saw that tag on Holiday once the White news came through. I was like, all right, you know what? He's given us over 5x return, 6, 7x return here in 2 of the 4 games this season where they were in like relatively competitive games, right? So if you think that happens here tonight, and then a lot of people talk LeBron, a lot of people have been talking about Anthony Davis for obvious reasons here, but D'Angelo Russell's out here putting out pretty solid production over the last 5 games to begin the year.
Yeah, this is a solid spot. Lakers are just going vastly under-owned, so if you want to get some leverage on the field in tournaments, you play Lakers tonight because they're not getting any ownership at all.
Yeah, right. Next tier down, anybody for you jumping off?
Maxey, Melton, Oubre, so standard stuff for Philly here. Starting lineup. Next tier down, I don't hate Spencer Dinwiddie at $6,300. He looked pretty good last game in Milwaukee. There's been a clear disconnect with the defense. Giannis commented after the game, like they need to figure some stuff out after the Toronto game. Lillard looks pretty bad defensively. You
go from Drew Holiday, a first-team All-D guy, to Dame Lillard, you're going to see a defensive drop-off.
Right. There was obviously going to be like some give and take, I would say, there with like, offensive weaponry versus actually getting stopped. So they've struggled there for sure. So that's something I would say to look at. Dinwiddie's going to go vastly under-owned with like the team getting a little healthier. I saw you flash Reggie Jackson's name up there. He's definitely in play, $5,500. He started the second half for Jamal Murray. He's been kind of good this year in the like limited playing time. He opened the year like with Christian Brown kind of working his way back, like kind of as this de facto 6th man. He was playing more minutes than Brown. Then Brown obviously has taken that leap that we expected. But now 20 and 25 minutes the last 2 games. We know Reggie Jackson can score. If the threes fall, that's always been like kind of a fatal flaw for Reggie Jackson. If he knocks down shots, he can be really effective. If not,
he's really the only true point guard on that team, though.
He
right?
is. Well, you don't. They can really put like, you can like have Aaron Gordon, who's a very good ball handler, bring the ball up, and because Jokic is your hub anyway. Like you're funneling everything through him. So Reggie Jackson's fine.
You had Suggs down here, Kobe White, any interest?
Suggs, I think, is fine. Nice safe floor. Outside of game number 1, he's really done everything for that Magic team. He's going to play a solid minutes. And then the second guy you mentioned was Kobe White. Like, I think at that point, you mentioned Sasser thing. I would rather just play Sasser. I would rather, and I know
Black
this
and
is
Sasser are right here near each other price wise. So is Dyson Daniels. Where is I think they finally moved what's his face there to Jordan Hawkins, shooting
he's
guard
just shooting
only.
guard. Yeah.
But we are expecting somebody to start at point guard for the Pelicans here tonight. With no McCollum, we haven't gotten the official word on whether it's going to be Daniels or Hawkins here. But assuming it's Daniels, you have Daniels, Sasser, and Black all right here. How are you? Which way do you lean if you had to pick one?
I also think there is an outside chance Kyra Lewis would start because he is more of a traditional point guard. I'm not saying that's like a bad thing for the others because, another team that can play Brandon Ingram on ball if they really wanted to, or Zion on the ball, like that's perfectly fine. Just throwing it out there. Kyra Lewis has pretty much acted as the backup point guard for this team thus far this year. So I think there's that chance. Also, I will throw into that equation. I know it sounds ugly, but I would probably give Killian Hayes a small look just with the randomness at like he can be productive and he's been really productive defensively. He needs to hit a shot.
The last four, he has actually, made some buckets, so that has certainly helped him there. But I don't know. I understand that Sasser might eventually fall off, but I mean, he got the 30 minutes against Phoenix in that blowout game. I think even if this game blows out against Golden State, the run's there for him regardless.
Yep.
And now it feels like with Burks out, he's just playing the Burks role anyway. So, more of an offensive player for sure.
Yeah, I was looking just to see what the Sasser minutes looked like, and that he only didn't, or the starters came off at the 2:30 mark. So even if Sasser doesn't play that let's say he didn't close because he played the last 16 minutes of the game.
Sure.
He would still have gotten 27
minutes, yeah.
Which is perfectly fine at 44. To your question of like which of those guys, there's always the case for Anthony Black that he'll get taken off if Cole Anthony has a big game. That's obvious. That's been like the Cole Anthony experience as a whole. Daniels doesn't shoot as much as the other guys, but if he were to start, he'd probably be my favorite of the three.
Yeah, I'd say with the one other thing with Sasser too is if you kind of look at who goes on the floor for Detroit in terms of like shooters, there aren't really many of the shooters on that floor, right? They go big with Thompson, Stewart, and Duran. Those guys can shoot, but they're not like perimeter players, right? Stewart will take a three. Thompson's offensive game isn't there. It's Cade. Cade shoots a lot, but like Sasser is someone that I think is going to be when he's on the floor. Like he's the guy that is out there to get a shot up. So I kind of like that. Kind of like that for him there. Where like obviously with the Magic guys, Paulo and Franz are there, and with Zion and Ingram for the Pelicans. Shooting guard position. This again a spot where I didn't really look to pay up for in the playbook today. Tyler Hero, Dejounte Murray, two guys, and Zach LaVine as well. I kind of just plugged in to that like mid-core play tier. I do like LaVine a lot tonight. I think that this is another matchup where a ceiling game could come from him just because of how bad Utah is defensively here. Yeah,
I mean, it's just hard. Like, I absolutely think that's true. It's just really hard to predict when they're coming, like when the ceiling games are coming. Like he's had really good games. He's had good, solid games. And then he's had he's had 3 games of 24 or fewer fantasy points, at $7,600. And he scored 51 in a game. That is a crazy range of outcomes. So, yeah, I think Zach LaVine could go off in any matchup ever. But, like, how engaged is he? How much does he want to be in Chicago? How is he reading into the Philly rumors of, like, the trade there? Like, they have a lot of money to spend next offseason. Daryl Morey wants to let everyone know that. So, like, there's a lot going on. Perfectly fine if you want to get there. I just, don't be surprised if you get a floor game because he's shown it 3 times this year,
Yeah. Yep, that's fine. Again, $7,600 is a little bit cheaper than obviously Murray and Hero, who I know we're both in on. You talked about Dejounte a little bit when talking about Trae. Yeah, I've been playing more Dejounte than Trae because he's $1,500 cheaper. But again, really strong value here in a pace up spot, or not a pace up spot, but a matchup with the highest game total on the board. And then here's the cover of the playbook today. So you know where I lie with Tyler Hero, whether close game or not, is on the floor for 36, 35 minutes here. 3 games at 40 minutes now already this season. And as we said before the season even started, we felt like Tyler Hero was going to lead the team in shots and lead the team in scoring. We didn't think it'd be this dramatic, but it is. He's out shooting everybody by a lot. He's outscoring everybody by a lot.
Yeah, and like Jimmy continues to be passive, right? He's just like, I don't know if he's just like getting his reps in, but he's only taken more than, I mean, he has taken 11 shots in 3 of the 5 games he's played. That's ridiculous for the guy who's presumably their best player. Bam, has had a few good games here and there. 15, 12, 14 shot attempts the last 3 games. Like, these guys are just deferring to Tyler Hero and letting him go to work. And as long as that's going to be the case, I have no problem getting there. This game is going to obviously be played at a pretty slow pace. Both teams like bottom half of the league in pace, but the Lakers are not as good defensively as they were last year. I know that was like a point of emphasis. Like at the deadline, they got really good defensively. They're bottom 10 in defense this year. Yeah. So I'm perfectly fine getting to Tyler Hero. I like him quite a bit.
Yep. In the sort of next tier here, we have Kelly Oubre, who is starting at 6K. He's kind of priced right at where his production level has been for them. Yep. Anybody else, though? Talon Horton-Tucker was a core play for you and I, $5,500. Dylan Brooks is $52. Kind of wrapping up, I think, this like above 5K range for me.
Yeah, man. I like both those guys. It's weird to say because, like, we have not often been a pro Dylan Brooks podcast here, but he's been really good. I think he's fit this team pretty well.
Just can't argue the minutes, right? 39, 34, 38, 38. So.
Yep, the minutes have been great. He has 2 guys that are really good passers delivering him the basketball in Şengün and Fred VanVleet, who are both like 10 assist threats on a nightly basis. So like, it's hard to like not get open looks with those guys, especially when the rest of the team is Jalen Green and Jabari Smith, who are both good offensive players. Like Dylan Brooks is just falling into open looks. And then the Talon Horton-Tucker thing, you and I were kind of like poo-pooing it the first few games, like he's been bad and they're probably going to make a change at point guard. And then you just rattle off 8-7, 8-5 assists. He took 20 shots. You and I were talking about on the podcast last night in 24 minutes.
The problem is that Utah's been so bad that they get blown out a lot. But I don't think Chicago can't blow them out. I don't think so. Well, I guess anything is possible. They're so bad defensively. But if this is a competitive game and you're going to get 30 plus minutes out of him, you've gotten 30 plus fantasy points out of him in both of those, in all 3 of those games where he's been in a competitive situation. So I do like it. I like the $5,500 price tag here for sure. Feels pretty good. As confirmed, we do have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander available to play today. So that should be a pretty fun game there. The guards battling off against one another there in Atlanta, OKC. Obviously Kyrie Irving now officially active. All right, so we're getting some news. Give us Luka and Kyrie both active tonight. So any value you thought you may have had with the Mavericks? No.
I was literally going to, when you asked me if there's anyone else in shooting guard, I was going to say Jaden Hardy's name, but that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh man, Hardy would. I was so high.
He's $3,300. I was like, holy cow!
Been 25 shot attempts for Jaden
100% owned on a 12-game slate.
Yeah,
if he was starting.
Well, now we don't have to worry about it. We can go back to just playing all the guys you were or weren't going to play against Dallas anyways. So, and again, nothing's really changed for me in the playbook. I had Grant Williams as a value play. He's still a fine value play tonight at $4,900 on DraftKings. So nothing changing for me there. Jordan Hawkins, again, under 5K guy that if he's in the lineup. If Hawkins is not starting, do you give him a look at all, or does he have to be in the starting lineup for you?
Oh, that's tough. I'm probably going to play the guy who starts.
Okay.
But like, if it's Kyra Lewis, if it's Dyson Daniels, I would feel like Dyson Daniels is going to get a majority of the run. If it's Kyra Lewis, he hasn't proved anything to the Pelicans over 3 years in which I don't know if he's going to max out. If it's Hawkins, all systems go. The guy just gets on the floor and he chucks. I mean, there's been one game where he hasn't gone out there and just flat out shot the
That's
ball.
what it is. The offensive boom bust of Jordan Hawkins is, 6 of 13, 27 fantasy points, 4 of 19, 28 fantasy points, 1 for 7 when he was the highest rostered player on the slate, 7 fantasy points. So,
Yeah.
And then he bounces right back against Atlanta there in a blowout loss, 24 fantasy points. So, those boom bust plays here on large field GVPs obviously can make or break it. Malachi Branham, where are we here with no Devin Vassell?
He's going to start. I think the case becomes even stronger if Keldon Johnson's eventually ruled out because Keldon Johnson's questionable. So
another 7 p.m. start too for us here, so we'll get news.
Yeah, so we'll know. I like it. I like the Branham call. The only thing is, and this is something you and I talked on the podcast, he went 8 of 9 from the floor. Like you're telling me that if I'm 8 for 9 on the floor, I'm like, yo, coach, like
you remember how good he was for that stretch last year?
He was. He is a good scorer, but he started, didn't close his first half, didn't close the second half, 8 of 9 from the floor.
Right.
They lost by 7, didn't play in overtime, 25 minutes. That's where I think you could lose out on Malachi Branham. Now, if he goes 8 for 9 again, we don't have to worry about it. If he takes 12 shots again in the other one of the other games he played 20 minutes, we don't have to worry about it because he's 12 shots is great, especially at 4,100. Great spot. Indiana's I think in pace, I think they're third in pace this year.
Yeah.
Not only are they third in pace, they're dead last defensively. It's just one of those things. Is Malachi Branham going to play enough minutes? Is he going to close halves? Is he going to start again? All these questions need answers. My expectation, let's say Keldon's ruled out, right?
Yeah.
Trae Jones starts, Malachi Branham starts, Sohan, Wemby, Collins. That would be my guess at a starting 5.
Okay. You don't think Chetty pops in?
Chetty could. I guess it depends on because they have Sohan as their starting point guard, right?
Yeah.
It all depends on.
Chetty become a core play if Keldon's out?
If Chetty is starting, he's 4,200. He's probably close to it. You also have to factor in McDermott played 24 minutes off the bench last game, randomly, which is
good for McBuckets, but can he stop playing basketball?
I don't disagree. I am just throwing that caveat in there. It depends if Pop wants to just exclusively use Sohan as their starting point guard. Because if Trae Jones is just going to come off the bench, then we're going to get, if Keldon is in fact ruled out, we're probably getting Chetty or McDermott in the starting line.
It's also a back-to-back, so I'm fully expecting a 15-man rotation tonight.
Dude, and that was my argument in the Discord this morning. It's Greg Popovich on a back-to-back. We could be talking about all of this. Victor Wembanyama is going to play 23 minutes tonight, and you're like, why did he just play 23 minutes? He was 9 for 12 with 6 threes and 4 blocks. Why did he play 23 minutes? But Greg Popovich. We just got the Draymond is still officially a game time decision, and then Underdog Fantasy out here giving you a flash discount. SGA scoring 18.5 points tonight. So, oh my gosh! Over. Please get out there now.
That's gotta go get your Underdog flash prop there. Go to fantasy.com/underdog. Use promo code ALARM. Get a $500 deposit match discount up to 100% there. Okay, scan the QR code. Take advantage of. Go get that flash prop offer right now over at Underdog Fantasy. Everybody. Small forward position. Multiple guys here. Multi-position eligibility. Jason Tatum with maybe no Zinger, no Derek White. Double probably well with him. He gets double-doubles anyways, but you got to think he'll be a rebounding fiend here in this matchup against Minnesota. LBJ is $9,600. We haven't really talked about the Clippers at all because we're not playing them, but obviously James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kawhi, Paul George. That's an interesting game to watch just to see how they all play together.
Yeah, it's more of let's see what's going on, right? As opposed to I have interest in any of these guys because they can obviously any one of them can go off, but who the hell knows who it's going to be? We have a Celtics problem to a lesser extent, right? Tatum is the guy, and he's going to go off nightly, but who's number 2? That's probably going to happen with either George or Kawhi going off nightly, but who's going to be second in charge? So wait and see approach on them for sure.
Yep. Moving our way down into the mid-tier range here. Again, we've talked some of these guys already. I do like DeRozan, and then as our guy Myron mentioned earlier, Franz here, just out here balling. 28 and 21 shots last 2 games, 12 of 28, 9 of 21 shooting. Giving you the full stat sheet, Phil, here too. 41 and 39 minutes, fantasy points the last 2 games. And they're really not bumping him too aggressively, right? 68, dumped to 67, to 7K, just to 71. And actually, honestly, Luka and Kyrie playing maybe better for this matchup overall if you think Orlando can keep it close.
Yeah, Franz, the leader in the clubhouse thus far with usage bumps when you remove Wendell Carter and Markelle Fultz off the floor. For over 3% usage increase, which is great. He averages 1.21 fantasy points per minute, only behind Paolo Banchero and Goga Batadze, who, obviously had hit one game under the sun. So, Franz Wagner is in elite play at 7,100. We've kind of been screaming from the rooftops every slate. Like, he's just so good and so consistent. There's going to be a ceiling too. He hasn't flashed it. It's just been really safe and secure, and like 39 and 41 fantasy points is great. What if that 12 for 28 was 14 of 28 or like 15 of 28? Like, you're talking about a guy who's going for 50 fantasy points. Plus the peripheral stats were down in that game. He averaged more rebounds and more assists per game than he did. So I love Franz Wagner in that spot. And DeRozan, put him in the same bucket as LaVine. Okay, like they're underpriced. They could go off. They could ruin your lineups. There's a very wide range of outcomes.
They've been underpriced all season long. It's only paid off once. He went for 52 night 2 against Toronto, which I guess we should have seen coming. With the revenge game there. But other than that, he's underwhelmed. 31 fantasy points isn't going to get it done for you. It's maybe a cash game play, but hasn't turned it over tournaments. But this is more so Utah being very bad defensively than I think the state of the Bulls currently here. Oscar Thompson, one of our favorite players all season long. The price is still the price. Going up against Golden State, though, where are you here?
I mean, it's just getting to a point where if he's going to actually take this many shots and be this productive everywhere else, like, we can't expect the 4 blocks, 4 steals. But it's not the first time he's had 4 blocks. It's the second game already he's had 4 blocks. Not the first time he's had 3. He's had 3 games with at least 3 blocks. So defensive stats becoming pretty secure. And I love the 38 minutes was something that was impossible not to love. 38 minutes, 14 shots, stuff in the stat sheet. He's fine at 6,600. Let me see if we close the game because that would be also telling. He didn't. So he would have literally played 40 minutes if that game was competitive yesterday.
Yeah. The Prince is I'm late. Only sorta.
Shocker.
Only kinda.
Also, biggest surprise of the day, the Prince is not on time.
That's true. That's fine. Get your questions into Prince. We'll be here to help you out. We'll give you our 2 values and our favorite starting pitcher when you guys.
Yeah.
Let's see here. More mid-tier small forwards. Michael Porter Jr. and I kind of talked about this right now. No Jamal Murray. We know that there's going to be some open shot attempts for him. 18 and 16 shot attempts the last 2 games. He's been knocking down his threes. Rebounds have been great. Blocks have been great. But we think he's drawing the Herb Jones matchup tonight. So not great there. Tough matchup.
No, I definitely think he's drawing the Herb Jones because, you're not putting him on Jokic. Porter is an interesting case here. He's averaging 1.06 fantasy points per minute without Jamal Murray this year in a limited sample. That's a 50-minute sample. So, take that for what it's worth. 140 offensive rating is like incredibly elite, but like he plays with Jokic. So that's to be expected. But Herb Jones is different, like just so different if that is the matchup, which I expect it to be. And it's hard to really quantify like individual 1-versus-1 matchups because Herb Jones could be as good as he can be, and Michael Porter is a 6'10" small forward.
It's a LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard entering the game meme. It's like, oh damn.
Yeah. So I think Michael Porter is fine in tournaments, but I think that's where like I would limit my exposure. The 2 games prior to this blowout or this breakout, 16 and 14 fantasy points for Michael Porter.
Yeah.
It's been a seesaw this year.
It has. Moving down here, under 5K, some guys we've discussed already. Obviously, with Irving and Luka playing tonight, THJ takes a little bit of a bump down. If you want to fit Bruce Brown in a lineup at 56, I think he's probably fine. We've talked Dylan Brooks here already. DeAndre Hunter, Grant Williams, Sadiq Bey, all of those guys are just fine for lineup fillers. Any one guy I haven't talked about that you're just like, this is someone that's in my player pool?
No, I was just gonna honestly blanket statement the Atlanta guys, because you could also throw
exactly what I did in my playbook. Just blanket statement the Atlanta guys.
Bojan or Bogdan as well is kind of blanket statement in that, because he's giving you a pretty safe floor, and I would say probably has a little higher upside than Sadiq does at the same price, but Sadiq's minutes seem to be a little more secure than Bogdan. So I would say no one else really stands out. Chetty, as you mentioned. Obviously, if Draymond's out, maybe that clears the way for a little small ball Gary Payton lineup, or Moses Moody or Kuminga or something like that. But
yeah, so if say Sam Hauser cracks the starting lineup tonight, would you give him a look?
Oh boy, I feel like we've done this so many times, and it's not it's. The problem I think with for me is he would still enter a lineup in this case. I'm assuming
with Brown, Holiday, Tatum.
He's still, what is he, and Horford? He's probably still the 4th to 5th offensive option, right? And I know he's 3,300, and I know
he's just a bailout 3 guy. He's Matt Ryan.
He's Matt Ryan that isn't playing, because in that Matt Ryan game, it was just McCollum. Zion and Ingram were both out. So you still have to contend with Brown, Holiday, Tatum.
We didn't even talk Jaylen Brown, but he kind of fits in that same build of
does.
Could maybe be Jaylen Brown.
Yeah. Could
maybe sure. Right?
Sure could.
He popped off for 57 a couple games ago, so certainly could be JB in that spot. All right, power forward here. We're definitely in on Tatum. Are you? I mean, I don't think we're paying for Giannis. It's not that you can, but I don't think we are. I don't think we're getting there today.
I mean, even with SGA in the spot he's playing, and Tatum now playing with potentially without Porzingis, where does Giannis even rank amongst the stars, right? He, again, like you said, he can go for 70. And would it surprise anybody? No, he's been one of the most dominant players in the NBA we've seen over the last handful of years, but he's not in front of Jokic. His ceiling is not anywhere close to Luka this year. Embiid's in an infinitely better matchup. SGA's on the best total on the board. Tatum's playing without 2 of their starting 5. Anthony Davis exists, who is
right.
No one talks about. He's going to 60 every night. Halliburton is the highest. Where does Giannis even rank in the hierarchy? I'm not totally sure. I think for me, it's you can play him, but I just don't feel the need to get there right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. Moving down again, Victor Wembanyama would be a great spot at $8,500 given the matchup. You just don't know. I think I am building a lineup with him in the lineup because he's too cheap at $8,500. I think. Right, you need to get 5x. It's 47.5 fantasy points, or 42.5 fantasy points. Quick math there. 49-61 the last 2 games, where he's played over 30 minutes in those games and just dominating. So RJ Barrett will be active tonight. So those of you looking to play some maybe Nick wings, nope, RJ Barrett's in. So
yeah, I mean, Wemby is in a group of guys that I think are really interesting, right? Obviously he probably has the highest ceiling of this next tier of individuals, but Towns is really cheap now. Potentially, who's guarding him for Boston? It could have been Horford. Now it's maybe Now it's I think Towns could potentially have his way in the post. Porzingis on the flip side of the matchup. Ben Carroll has been incredible the last 2 games. Just kind of stuff in the stat sheet and averaging over 1.3 fantasy per minute.
The free throws have been nice, right? I got 15 free throws here against Utah.
And so you can go there. I think Chet becomes a little less interesting at this price. But he had a ceiling. He had 53 fantasy points in his second game. Like he still had a ceiling with SGA, still in the best game environment on the board. And then Kuzma, if that game can at all stay competitive, he's taking 20 shots a night and he's scoring 20 plus points a night. Like if that game were to stay competitive, maybe like this whole tier of guys, including Wemby, is incredibly interesting. Obviously, again, Wemby has the best ceiling. He's one of the only people in this tier with multi-position eligibility, but there's the elephant in the room where what if he plays 38 minutes? Sure. Keldon Johnson on track to play.
Saw that, yeah.
So that's interesting.
On track to play 12 minutes.
Yeah. Check in and check out. So I don't know. Like Wemby's a complete dart, complete GPP play because Pop could obviously limit his minutes.
Agreed. Moving on down, you mentioned a lot of the guys I was going to look at. Paolo, Holmgren, Kuzma, all of them guys are fine here tonight. Probably off Jalen Williams now at SGA, back in the lineup. Not playing Barrett, Murray here. John Collins at $6,100 though piques my interest a little bit.
Safe and secure, John Collins, right? Like he hasn't really flashed too high of a ceiling, but if you're playing cash games, John Collins fits the build. If you end up $6,100 for somebody, he fits the build. I like John Collins quite a bit. I think for me personally, John, the only problem I would have with John Collins is if you are at power forward, Jabari Smith and Jalen Johnson specifically are two guys that like are cheaper.
Sure.
And I would say have higher ceilings probably. Like I feel really good about Collins' floor, especially if you're playing cash. But Jabari Smith has been awesome lately. We just saw this matchup 21-11. Peripheral stats are not always going to be there as we can see, as you know, multiple games with no blocks, multiple games with no assists. But the scoring has been pretty consistent.
Yeah.
And then Jalen Johnson, depending on the route Atlanta takes, might start, might not. Who knows? Like it's a 50-50 kind of night.
Games with double-digit rebounds is nice to see out of the kid. So
yeah, and no steals and blocks in those games, and that kind of seems more of an anomaly than anything. Looking at the first four and how like just everywhere he is defensively. So that would be my only hesitation with going to Collins. I just kind of like those two below more. But also, Collins has better eligibility than them and has definitely flashed a really, really safe floor.
Sure. Moving on down, we mentioned DeAndre Hunter already. Mo Wagner has the multi-position eligibility. I don't mind Bobby Portis in tournaments if you wanted to just throw a dart there for maybe a random day that he goes off. You've mentioned Sadiq Bey. He's $4,500 here. If Draymond gets ruled out, Dario Saric certainly becomes a bit interesting. Him in, probably Kuminga battle to start, do you think? Or do we go Looney starting? Like, what's that lineup look like?
So they've been starting Looney. So it's going to be they ran the the Clay at 2, Wiggins at the 3. Yeah. I assume Kuminga or Saric. I'm just looking at this because I wanted to see what Golden State was priced at. If Draymond sat, like Kuminga's $5,000, but Wiggins is $5,500. Doesn't that feel like, I know the minutes have been horrible for Wiggins. Like he hasn't played more than 28 minutes this year. I don't know, something just interesting. Saric is obviously the best price. I'm just not sure who I like the best. Like $5,500 for Wiggins feels really good.
Yeah, like
that feels better to me than Kuminga at $5K. But I guess it depends on if Kuminga would start. I don't know how. I'm workshopping through Golden State because I think Wiggins is too cheap at 55 too if there was no Draymond.
Sure. All right. Any other value here at the power forward position? I have one like punt play, assuming that lineup stays the same for the Chicago Bulls. That's Torrey Craig. 27 minutes last time out, gave you 21 fantasy points. We know he can bring some defensive blocks and steals. Rather aggressive on the boards for given his minutes that he plays. And you know, you and I talk about it. Like there are nights where Torrey Craig, for whatever reason, will go and hit like 8 threes. I don't know why. I don't know how it happens, but like he does. So I don't know. I don't mind a dart throw here, Torrey Craig.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is he started over the weekend and he took the place of Patrick Williams. Shout out our boy Bowers, JR Bowers in the Discord. You guys know him, JR Bowers 92. I think he played Torrey Craig last year, and Torrey Craig went for like 60 fantasy
that
points
Suns game, right?
at like 0.1% ownership. And I was like, dude, you have to get a Torrey Craig jersey. Like, he just made you a lot of money. You were the only person in the world to play Torrey Craig today. But yeah, as long as he's starting again, it is a pretty good spot with how bad Utah's been and defensively, and he actually could maybe go from 6 to 7, 8 shots in this game, and we've now seen a couple games where he's top 20 fantasy points, $3,500. That'd be more than okay.
And it's a big slate. There's not a ton of true value here. Torrey Craig for me, I think, is in a player pool. The other one there, and you actually brought this up on the show this morning, is Jalen Smith. Has the dual positional eligibility on DraftKings. He's $4,200. Center only on FanDuel. But another guy that's like not playing a lot of minutes, but 24, 23, 25, 26, and then 14 here. I mean, 26 fantasy points in 13 minutes is insane. 21 and 24, 23 and 17. And we talk a lot like Miles Turner isn't adverse to getting into foul trouble. And if Zach Collins are out there tonight playing minutes, like there's a good chance Miles Turner gets into foul trouble here tonight. So not to say that Jalen Smith isn't a happy guy either. Man gets 4 fouls in 13 minutes, but I don't mind Jalen Smith here as a dart throw power forward play either.
Yeah, he's actually a really good fan. He's just a really good fantasy point per minute guy. So like he gets on the floor, even if it's 18 minutes, like he's probably going to give you 20 something fantasy points. And like you said, if there's foul trouble for Miles Turner, there is obviously room for more. But Jalen Smith himself needs to stay out of foul trouble. So we'll definitely a tournament play, a last piece in type of spot.
The Prince wants to know our FanDuel values and top stud. Well, let's coincide with us moving over to center because there are 2 top studs that I think we're looking at here this evening. Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid. You can plug and play either of these top centers here tonight, both in great spots. When it comes to value on FanDuel tonight, I only put 1 on the point guard position over on my playbook. That's because Reggie Jackson on FanDuel is only $4,200. He is cheaper than Sasser, cheaper than Daniels, cheaper than Hawkins. They just didn't touch Reggie Jackson's price tag over on FanDuel there. So probably going to be super chalk, but get Reggie Jackson in your lineup over on FanDuel there as one of your value plays. Play one of these top centers over there as well. I'm a big fan, obviously, of paying up there. And we got a couple other value plays in the playbook there, Prince. So go check out that draft grid. Go check out the write-up over in tonight's playbook for your other value plays for the FanDuel slate. Talk to me, though, James. If you had to pick one, Joker or JoJo, there you go.
I mean, I'd probably go Jokic, but I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer because the minutes, I mean, we saw Embiid go for 80 in 29 minutes. So, like, just giving you a quick peek behind the Embiid curtain. No more Harden. Everything's flowing through Embiid. He has 6+ assists in all but 1 game this year. I think that's been amazing to see. That's something that we're used to seeing.
They're Jokic numbers, right?
They're Jokic numbers coming off an MVP season. So like, I have no problem getting to Embiid. It's hard for me to overlook though. I sent it to you and I sent it to the Discord this morning. Nikola Jokic has averaged 2 fantasy points per minute without Jamal Murray this year. And that's like, actually, like if you were to tell me that's, just doing math, if Jokic played 35 minutes, that's 70 fantasy points. And
I like that we have him at like one of his lowest price points of the season too here. After coming off of 69 and 68, they dump him $400 for us on a 12-game slate. We do just get official word Draymond Green will play tonight. So, all of those random questionables that we got this afternoon, everybody's in. So,
everyone's in. Steve Kerr actually staying true to his word for the first time probably in his career.
And stop me if you've heard this one before. Robert Williams requiring knee surgery.
It's sad. I'll go Jokic. I do have this question for you, John, because after I saw the Princess thing, I wanted to just check. So no center is like highly owned, and it's high price center, I should say. That's because in FanDuel specifically, you can only play 1, and everyone's playing Goga, right?
Sure.
I feel like Jokic Embiid
is that not the leverage then?
It's definitely good leverage. But now that everyone's playing, where's the value coming from? Because everyone's playing.
I told you on FanDuel, Reggie Jackson's $4,200. So there's other value on the slate. There's some mispriced guys we've talked about already tonight that they didn't really move the price points on a lot of them. Jordan Hawkins is 42, Bay's 51, Grant Williams is 5K. I mean, there's still a lot of cheap guys over on FanDuel that you can build around a Joker if that's the way people are going. But yeah, I mean, I guess your spend up then would be like Halliburton or SGA.
Probably
over them if that ends up being the case on FanDuel. AD has power forward center eligibility. AD is 11-6 on FanDuel, so you could play him there. But would you rather pay $12K for Joker or 11-6 for AD? I think I'd rather pay the $12K for Joker, right?
It's definitely closer on FanDuel because Davis has
the blocks.
I mean, just more block upside than maybe anyone else other than Jaren Jackson at home, right? Like that's probably so I have just a question, just because I'm looking at the ownership, like, wow, no centers being owned. You're right about leverage, 100%. Good leverage on Jokic or Embiid. Just definitely an eye-popping number seeing Goga so highly owned and no other center being rostered.
Right. Agreed. And guys, those of you who are tuning in, I'm in the process of updating rostership on site. We were waiting for all that recent injury news to kind of come through here. So be patient with us. We'll have that up plenty of time before roster lock, so you can make sure you get all that information ahead of your lineup builds there. Moving down into the center spot, more into that mid-tier range. We talked, Şengün, Chet, Vucevic, Jalen Duran's at $6,800. So, like, where are we possibly looking at when it comes to this?
Yeah, I mean, Şengün is a solid 8K play. Love to see the minutes last time out. Love to see the minutes in 3 of the last 4. He's flashed them nearly 60 fantasy point ceiling. There's obviously foul risk there, though, with Şengün. I think Vucevic is a good play. He's probably been the safest, but he does have an 18 fantasy point game against Jalen Duran. But at least he's given us 250 burgers, right? So, Vooch is fine. Turner is getting a lot of ownership, which is always really scary because Miles Turner we talked about it in the pod. He has 3 games of 40-plus fantasy points. He has 3 games less than 30. Like, it's impossible to get this guy correct. And then, I don't know, like, center is like, I want to spend up on DraftKings, especially Jokic and Embiid. I'm just getting to Goga at 4,800, and like Zach Collins is fine. I think
Zach Collins I wrote up in the playbook today because if you go look again at our consistency tool that we have over at Fantasy Alarm here, he's been really good at tonight's price tag on DraftKings. He's gotten 3 5x returns and a 7x return on the year for him over on DraftKings. Over on FanDuel, you've gotten at least a 5x return now in his last 3 starts. So, if you're looking for that upside, I know he plays next to Wemby, so people sort of forget about him. Same thing with Keldon. But Zach Collins has been really good. Stays out of foul trouble as long as he stays out of foul trouble. And knowing that he's still giving you a 7x ceiling while Wembayama and Keldon and those guys are doing their thing, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, he has been great. And he's just a good player that had a lot of injuries pile up in the beginning of his career. So 6,400 is a good price. Miles Turner blocks a lot of shots, but there's obvious defensive risk. Like Miles Turner also gets in foul trouble and sells out for blocks. And so, yeah, I like Zach Collins in the price for sure.
Then you mentioned Okonkwo here is another guy that we're looking at. Would you play any Mo Wagner tonight?
Mo Wagner's interesting because he just seems like the backup, right? That's just what it is. Like they're comfortable with him as the backup 5. He's also more expensive than Goga Bitadze, which is for one reason or another. Foul trouble didn't really play a factor in why his minutes were 19. He's kind of just settled in as a backup center regardless. Sure, I don't hate it. It's crazy tournament leverage going from Goga to Wagner. So yeah, if you want to look at it like one of those situations, who's to say Goga doesn't get in foul trouble? We thought that he was going to get in foul trouble in the Lakers game. He didn't. He had double-double, and he was crazy efficient everywhere else. But he's not out of the woods for foul trouble. So, yeah, I'm not against it. I will say, like, maybe Isaac being out does give both these guys like a little higher minute ceiling too,
Sure.
Because Isaac can play the 5 as well. 7-footer is John Isaac, grew in the NBA. So yeah, Wagner's okay.
Okay. Anybody else for you at center?
I wish Dejounte Sharp got 20 minutes. If Dejounte Sharp ever plays 20 minutes a night, John, I'm playing Dejounte Sharp because he is a freak of nature on fantasy point minute.
Yeah, probably.
There.
Yeah, we can keep hoping for those days.
Hey, they're trending upwards, dude. They're trending.
Obviously, I think there's some matchup dependency, which I think we'll both agree with on that one a little bit there as well. Like when they kind of have to have a big, or else they'll just get completely
Milwaukee
by team that's on the field. Yeah, no, I hear you. I get you. We'll see. We'll see if it plays out or not here. Let's see. You want to get a lineup build for the people?
Yeah.
Where are we starting? Are we going fair and balance, or are we going Joker?
What do you
think?
How do you feel? Because I know you sent me multiple lineups today that you did one of each. So I mean, look, Tyler Hero's the cover of your playbook. So
sure.
Like, I built with Jokic today.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone was paying attention, he did. There was a random wrist flare up, which he's been dealing with. He's been wearing tape on his wrist. Like, there's something there. Not the first injury he's even dealt with this year, but because he had the back injury, so now he's potentially dealing with a back, wrist, and a missed horse injury. So, so if you don't want to play Jokic, I can understand it.
We got some, obviously, the updated rostership over on Fantasy Arm, so you can check that out now. All right, let's get a lineup going. Goga is your top rostered center today, so we kind of expected that to be done anyway. So we'll start there. If we want to go Joker in the utility, we can do that as well, and see where we get with some lines here. So $5,600. I do still want to get Hero in a line. 51-20. So knowing what we know with
Sasser,
yeah, going there. Probably need to use black then, I'd imagine, for some more value. Gives us 56. We like Dylan Brooks. 52. I think we're pricing ourselves out of Town Horn Tucker, unfortunately, but can't really do much about that one. 58-50.
All the Washington guys are playing, by the way. Gafford, Denny Avdia, and Corey Kispert all active tonight.
Just got that update as well. Jalen Johnson, and then a $6,100 forward. What do you think? Collins?
Jabari Smith.
Jabari
Smith or Collins, yeah.
Gives us $300 left over. So if we wanted to build a lineup, that came together pretty easily with the Joker here. Got him at the util. We have $300 left over. So ownership is working with rostership percentage. Yeah, it's the same thing. They're the rostership percentage and ownership are the two, just interchanging terms depending on how you go about it. So, example lineup there. Any adjustments you want to make to this?
No. Good.
Okay, I'm gonna make it a fair and balanced lineup just to see what it looks like for the folks at home.
I think more like Dejounte probably in the fair and balanced.
Yep, that's where I'm looking. So let's go Hero. Let's go Dejounte.
We're still using Goga.
Yeah, we're gonna use Goga probably. Go SGA as our guard or THG as our guard. Goga at center. I still like Sasser. I'll have to use him, I guess, as our punt play there. 6,500. Brooks or Jabari if you had to pick one.
Jabari
at the power forward spot. 6,850. Small forward and a forward spot here. I kind of like Levine. I do. I like Levine. 6,100 kind of put us right back to where we were just at for
same exact spot. But we played Jabari last time, and we have Jabari already. So
we have Jabari already. Good Jalen Johnson.
Yeah.
All right. So that gives us Hero, Murray, Levine, Smith, Goga, Horton, Tucker, Jalen Johnson, and Sasser. Just for again some additional Builds here for fair and balance. They have a little bit of money left over. 8,100. What's that? What's $8,100 small forward? Because he's got multi-position eligibility. He does not. What's 8,100? Ingram?
Jalen? Yeah, Ingram or Jalen. Yeah, one of the two.
I don't mind Jalen. We'll get a little Jalen exposure there. So a couple of different ways to build some lineups here tonight, everybody. Again, we'll be in the Discord till 7 with any roster updates. It seems like the news we were waiting on all kind of came through already, and no major changes going on. So the playbook will just be updated with some of those solidified injury updates, but core play grid and everything else is pretty much going to stay the same here unless we get some more news that breaks randomly as we get into roster lock. No NBA tomorrow, but be on the lookout for our NBA DFS preview show for Wednesday's slate. Again, no games on the schedule for tomorrow's NBA day, so we'll probably have the preview show for Wednesday's slate out a little bit early for everybody. So check back to the Fantasy Storm YouTube for that. If you haven't already, please like the channel, subscribe, always get notified whenever we go live here on the Fantasy Storm YouTube channel. Support us all week long. James, final thoughts for the people at home?
No, we'll just be in the Discord up until lock, answering any and every question you guys have.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Good luck tonight. We will catch you later.